Welcome, everyone, to the Traveling Pilates Teacher Podcast. I'm Christy Klein, and thank you all for joining me for my premiere episode. Today, I have the honor of hosting my first guest, Beth, and she is the owner of Balance Yoga and Pilates in Glen Ellen, Illinois, and that is right outside of Chicago in the United States. So welcome, Beth.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and feel really honored to be your first guest.
Yes, thank you. I'm very excited. A little nervous, but I think we're going to be okay. Beth and I had a little microphone issue, but I think we've got that solved right now, so our nerves are a little bit calm. But yes. So Beth, first, let's just start out by telling me and the audience just a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the studio as well.
Sure. I'm a resident of Glen Ellen, married and have one child and a puppy. I have been a long time yogi. I started practicing yoga when I was actually pregnant with my daughter, who is now almost 15. So it's been a long journey in my life. And I've also been a huge Pilates enthusiast for years. I teach yoga. I don't teach Pilates, but I love to get on the reformer. It's one of my favorite things really to do. And so Balance Yoga and Pilates, my studio, we're a small boutique wellness studio. We offer yoga, Pilates reformer classes, and also aerial yoga classes. And then in addition to that, we have several different healing therapies that kind of our clients can use to complement their movement practice. We have a wonderful massage therapist, an outstanding Ayurvedic healer, someone who also has great skills, energy healing, and a wonderful Thai body work person. So really kind of a plethora of services. I like to think we're kind of your one-stop shop for holistic wellness.
Yeah. And I would second that. As soon as you walk in the door, I've been a guest teacher here. I was just a guest teacher right before we podcast, and as soon as you walk in, the studio has just a calming, just leave everything at the door, walk into the studio and just start focusing in on you and only you. And that's one of my mantras as a teacher as well, focusing on you and only you. So this studio really complements that. And I do love the fact that you offer private lessons, you offer group lessons, you have all the other pieces like the therapies to go with it. So it's really nice. It's a beautiful studio. It's a clean studio, which also is a benefit.
Thank you. I work hard at that.
Yes, there are some studios that, could use a little tidying up, but this is not one of them. So, you spoke a little bit about that journey that led you to here, to owning your own private studio. Yeah. But is there one in particular that inspired you to create this beautiful space that you have here?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. I am not the original creator of this studio. The studio has actually been here for 10 years now. We just had 10 years in December, so we're heading into 10 and a half. I've been the owner for 2 years and really kind of fell into studio ownership very accidentally. It's kind of a funny situation. The studio used to be called Mindful Movements, and I was a longtime client here. Took yoga here as soon as we moved back to the Chicago area. And then during COVID, I did my yoga teacher training, and the two women who used to own the business let me do my teaching hours here, my practicum hours, and teach classes. And so I then became a part of the teacher community in addition to still being a client. So those women had owned it for 8.5 years and made it through COVID, which is an accomplishment in itself.
Yes, it is.
And I think they just reached a point in their lives where they were ready to kind of move on to a new chapter. So it was almost 2 years ago now. We were having a team meeting with all of the teachers, and the two former owners announced that they were going to close the doors unless they could find someone to buy it. And I had been teaching for 6 months.
Yeah.
And I came home from that meeting and I was devastated. Like, this studio was a second home to me.
Yes.
I had been a long time client. I said to my husband, I think that I want to buy the yoga studio.
And he went, what?
Yeah. And I said, do you think that's the stupidest thing I've ever said? And he just paused and he was like, no, actually, I think that's great. I think that's exactly what you should be doing. So long story, I started the process, and each door just kept opening into the next step. And so I became the owner on May 1st of 2022. So almost exactly 2 years. And then I rebranded in just this past October, changed the name from Mindful Movements to Balance Yoga and Pilates.
And I love that you said that the doors opened, because I feel when those doors open, you just have to step through them. So good for you.
Yeah,
well, good.
So here I am.
Congratulations. Again, it's a beautiful studio. So if you're ever in the state of Illinois in the United States, you have to pop in, especially in the northern suburbs. It's a wonderful studio. So come visit Beth and her amazing teachers and her amazing team.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the studio in particular, the Pilates studio part of it.
Yeah.
What sets this studio apart from other private as well as other franchise studios? What sets it apart from those?
Well, first of all, I think we're one of the few locally owned studios left in the area. There's been a lot of corporate owned studios that have come in for both Pilates and yoga. We're actually the only non-heated studio in the yoga studio in Glen Ellen. So if you are someone that doesn't want heat, we offer that. But dialing in specifically to Pilates, we only have 4 reformers. So it's truly a small group class. Really, I really say to new people, it's really a semi-private. You have one instructor and 4 students. So you're really, as an instructor, you're really able to focus one-on-one on each client throughout the class. You're able to tailor the class to them and their specific needs, which is really, really unique, I think. There's not a lot of studios that kind of have that smaller atmosphere. And then on a bigger sense of it, we have 3 different movement practices all under one roof. We have Pilates, we have yoga, and then we have aerial yoga. And in addition, of course, the healing services that I mentioned. So we kind of have a lot of different services that you can pick and choose. Some clients do all 3.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Not a lot. Some clients do just one. But there's a really great kind of mutual respect for all people that walk through the doors.
Right. And I love that. I love that you offer, because I do feel a lot of people that have Pilates backgrounds have yoga interest or yoga background, or vice versa. People with have yoga backgrounds have a Pilates interest or Pilates as well. I think that yoga and Pilates, now there are people that will argue us and say, no. But I think that they complement each other very well. And so one day I may feel like doing the reformer and getting a little bit more of that intense workout. But then there's other days where you just want that yoga and you just want to stretch and open up those joints and open up those muscles. So I think that this studio definitely does offer that.
I think the clients that do participate in both yoga and Pilates would say the same thing. They really complement each other and meet your needs for what you have that day.
Perfect. Well, good. Well, thank you. I 100% agree with that. So let's, first, before we move on to the challenges, let's talk about how do you get the community involved and how do you make that connection with because you're in Glen Ellen, with that Glen Ellen community, and you're close to Glendale Heights. So what are you doing for that community outreach?
Well, I think community for us just within the studio is a huge part of being here. If you come to the studio or even you go to our website, we have 3 words that you'll see. They're on the front door of the studio. They're actually on a wall of the studio, and the words are intertwined in the mural we have in our yoga room. And those 3 words are strength, peace, and connection. And that connection is that part that we're talking about here, that community within ourselves, within each other, with the teacher-client relationship, with student-student relationship, and just with everyone, that kind of walks through the door. Because we're a smaller studio, it allows that opportunity for clients to really get to know one another. When you're standing next to each other on the reformer, you're laughing about some crazy exercise that the teacher's making you do, or you're in a yoga class and the class is full and you open your arms up for some pose and you tap the person next to you. There's just a real sense of mutual respect and camaraderie. We also try to do a lot of things within the studio to grow that community. Next week is our Client Appreciation Week, so we have some things coming up for students to stay after class and mingle, have a little coffee or tea or muffin. We did a member appreciation night in the fall, and we actually did an open house for the community when we rebranded in October to kind of bring people who hadn't been here before to check out the space. One of the other things that we do in terms of connecting with the community, we run a yoga teacher training program here. And so in the early spring, late winter, we offer free yoga classes that the teachers in training that teach to the community. So those are really nice to help bring people come in that maybe yoga is a little bit inaccessible in terms of cost, and allows us to kind of branch out and help people get to know us.
That's a great idea. I love that.
Community and connection is a big thing for me. It's really honestly what drove me to buy the studio. I always I wanted to own a small business, and I wanted something that was about that, about bringing people together.
Perfect. Well, I love that. And I also know, too, one thing I was waiting for you to mention, but you didn't, but I'm going to mention is she has a puzzle out on the table.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Stop and do the puzzle, and it kind of brings people together and talk about, because the puzzle becomes a topic amongst members.
It does.
So that's a great, I've never seen that before in a studio.
It was really accidental how we started it. I think I love to do puzzles. I don't have a great space at home to do them. So one day I just set it up on the counter, and then it became a thing where people bring them in. It's like the free library of puzzles. There's a stack by the front desk.
I've seen it, yes.
Ones that are dropped off. And there's some people that like literally will stand there for like 10 minutes after class
I've seen
with someone else working on the puzzle.
Yes. After the Pilates class that I just taught, there was a woman working on the puzzle, and she came in a little bit early and she worked on the puzzle, which, also kind of just offer something unique from your studio, as well as, that sense of community as well. So I love that too.
And I also think too, it's a space where people notice when you're not here, and not in like a bad way, just more of like, hey, Susie, you weren't in class yesterday. I missed seeing you. And so there's a level of camaraderie, a level of accountability, and a level of like, I think it's nice to walk in the door and someone to notice that you haven't been around and that they're glad to see you again.
Yeah. And you do have that one group of ladies that come together every week, which is also really nice, that they kind of book us some. So I guess it's a private.
Yeah, we have three sets of women that do that every week.
Yeah, which is great, because then that motivates them to come, and gets them each working with each other.
Yeah, and they go to coffee afterwards or something.
Yeah, perfect.
It's really nice.
Yeah, I love that for them. I want to be part of that. So I don't want to be the teacher. I want to be part of it.
I know.
Wonderful. All right, well, let's flip this conversation just a little bit, and let's just talk about maybe some challenges that you've faced as a studio owner, especially a small business owner in the community. So if you can just talk about some of those challenges that you faced and have overcome.
Yeah, well, I think you're always still overcoming them. So I don't know if I've fully overcome them.
We've found a different path to overcome them.
I think, being a small business owner has so many amazing gifts and so many amazing benefits. I'm a mother, and so I do have control over my schedule. I'm not tied to a desk all day. I have some flexibility. I can be there to pick up my daughter after school or take her to an appointment. So on a personal level, I really appreciate that. It allows me to have, to the best of my ability, a little work-life balance.
Yes.
I think it's challenging because something I mentioned earlier, we're obviously locally owned. It's me. I don't have a partner, which that is challenging too, that I'm running this by myself.
Yes.
But it's challenging in the sense that, like with anything that's happening, I think, in America especially, is there are a lot of corporate businesses.
Yes.
And so as an individual business owner, you're trying to compete with something that has more corporate backing, more, financial support. And that's really challenging. So thankfully, Glen Ellen residents especially are very loyal to their own. So they really love to support small businesses. And that's been a gift, but it's just hard. We're open 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So, and we're only closed on like Christmas and New Year's and a couple days around the holidays. So it's 24/7.
Yes, it is.
And it's brick and mortar. So there's 24/7.
Yeah. If the pipe breaks, it's your responsibility.
Literally. And that has happened.
Oh, no. No.
And then when I kind of narrow it down into kind of the Pilates industry itself, given your background, I don't teach Pilates. I teach yoga.
Right.
So perfect example of why you're here this morning, in addition to recording this podcast, is we had an instructor had a family emergency. I am not able to jump in and teach the class. So I have to either cancel or pray, like I did last night, that I can find someone that can jump in at the last minute, which you did.
Yes, so much. No problem. It's a pleasure.
And so that's hard to kind of be not able to do everything. There are things that I have to rely on and reach out for help.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, again, kind of speaking from the Pilates industry, Pilates teachers are hard to find.
Yeah.
It's an expensive program. It's a lot of hours. Over 500 typically is the minimum. Some are 600-700 hour programs. And so it takes time to get that certification, as you know. And then it takes time to teach and practice and hone your skill. So a lot of the more established teachers, rightfully so, they found their home, they're at their studio that they love, and they're not interested in going somewhere else, which is okay.
Yes.
So that's if you talk to any Pilates studio owner,
Yes.
that's one of the biggest challenges is staffing.
I'm
still working through that.
Yes, I agree with that. And being a Pilates teacher, I don't have as much experience as some. I agree with that statement because I'm already starting to get into that schedule, and I know that schedule, and it's like, oh, do I want to add to that schedule? Yeah. And so I can see it, and I'm trying not to be that teacher. I'm trying to be that more flexible, because I think too, for those Pilates teachers that are listening to us, it's so beneficial to go to other studios, especially if you work for a corporation. Like I have worked for a corporation, but thankfully the corporation that I work for allows me to go to other studios as well, because I believe there's some that don't, and be able to open up own practice by teaching, because you have different reformers than the other studios that I teach at. So that it gives me and makes me a better learner, because I like to think of myself as a lifetime learner. To capitalize on your challenge, I think to encourage other people to open up their mind and open up their practice and really come to these different studios, especially these smaller boutique studios, because it's such a different experience than working in the corporate, and vice versa. You know, if you're only a small studio practice or practitioner, then open your mind and go to the corporate and see where your niche is, and see, because both do have benefits and both have, negative, not negative, I would say more challenging versus negative, because there's really no negative. I mean, how could you be negative in this beautiful environment that's so soothing and calm? Just a little challenge. That's it. So perfect. Well, good. Well, I hope that you continue to overcome them, because that work-life balance is key. So hopefully no more pipes breaking, because we had a mild winter this year. So hopefully no more. Perfect.
That one was a roofer hitting a nail into a pipe.
Oh, that's not fun. No fun. Well, I'm glad you overcame that, and we're good. So let's step back here a little bit. We talked a little about the fact that there is a big popular chain very close to your studio. In the United States, it's just exploding, this chain. And so, can you share what it's like to compete for those instructors and compete with those clientele?
Sure. I mean, it's really hard. I will say it's definitely a challenge. I think I will comment, I think maybe some wouldn't agree to me. The thing that I do appreciate about the corporate chains is they do make Pilates more accessible. Their pricing is very different than ours. And so some clients or people that maybe want to come here that were a little bit out of their budget, they're able to go somewhere where the pricing is a little bit less. And that's kind of really the first thing that people notice is we do cost more. We have 4 reformers, so that's just 4 people in the room versus the bigger chains can have 8, 10, or 12 reformers. So that's sometimes 3 times as many clients as we have. So they can charge a little bit less, and they can pay their teachers more. So that's where the challenge comes in, is one, explaining it to a teacher who can make, X amount at a corporate studio and is only going to make whatever amount it is here. Sometimes they can be equal depending on the seniority of the teacher. Sometimes they can be far off, but I'm limited on what I can pay an instructor.
Sure.
And the fact that I only have 4 performers. Right. And then it comes from the client standpoint. They look at our website and they see a price point. They look at another corporate studio's website and they see their price point, and they're like, how are you charging this? And they're charging that. And I like to say, I gave this explanation to someone the other day. It's like apples and oranges. We're both a fruit. We both offer a service that's the same, but they're totally different. They taste different. You eat them differently. Like it's just a different entity. And I don't want to put the corporate studios down when I say this, but I do think for here, it's a smaller experience. It's a little bit more quality over quantity. You get that individual one-on-one attention that some people really want and crave. Yes. Some people prefer to be in a bigger setting and kind of fade into the background. And that's kind of an individual, client choice, but it's hard. It's a conversation I have probably 2 to 3 times a week with phone calls. Yes. And it's hard to get in classes when there's only 4 reformers.
Yes, so that is true.
People have to be patient with the wait list.
Yes. Good. Well, you kind of already talked about why a client should choose you versus the studio, but anything else on that? Because I know you also offer private studios or private instructions, I should say. So talk a little bit more about your private.
Yeah, I think the one perk too is that you can come in with and do a one-on-one and get that private session. You also can come in with your husband if you're a woman, or a girlfriend, and schedule a duet session or a trio session, or 4 of you can come in. Like we have a set group of women, as you mentioned, that have some privates scattered throughout our weekly schedule.
Right.
So there's some flexibility to do Pilates with who you want to do it with. And if that's a small group setting, just you one-on-one, or it's you and a friend, I think that's a really nice gift. Something that I really pride myself on from all of the teachers that we have here, yoga and Pilates, but specifically Pilates, every single one of our instructor has a minimum of 10 to 15 years of experience teaching.
That's a lot.
So they've been doing it for a long time. They've worked at a lot of different places, and they come from very different backgrounds. One of them is a yoga therapist and a PT assistant. So she has a very incredible knowledge of the body, and is the one who I assigned to work with, you know, people that are recovering from an injury or have special needs, that special population that need a little extra TLC. I have one teacher who is a very contemporary style teacher, another teacher who teaches more traditional classic Pilates. So I think you really get a variety of exposure to really experienced teachers. And it's like what I said, it's that small group setting. If that's what you crave, that's what we are there to support. And we provide, I think one of the things I also talk about a lot with clients is we provide a high level, it's almost a concierge type experience. You can reach out, we can help you with your scheduling. You get that one-on-one focused attention.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with all of what you said. And I also think to capitalize on that is when you walk through the door as a client, you have a choice. You can go the yoga route today. Yeah, I can do the aerial route. Yeah, I can do a therapy choice. I can do Pilates. So when you go to a corporation, a corporate chain, it's just Pilates.
Yes.
And it's Pilates in and Pilates out. There's no, let me get a massage afterwards, or, I took this Pilates class, let me go to a yoga class now, because one starts 10 minutes later. And because there is a lot of people that do 2 classes in a day, and they block that 2 hours off. So you have that variety. And so I do love that aspect that you offer.
It does make us unique.
Yeah, perfect. Wonderful. So, after everything that you've learned, and what advice would you give to a new inspiring Pilates instructor, or somebody that's kind of thinking about getting into Pilates, or somebody that's thinking about owning their own studio, or both of those?
Yeah. Well, I'll focus on the owning their own studio first, because that's what I have experience in.
Yeah.
And so many lessons that I've learned, and I literally continue to learn something new every single day of this, of this career path. But the thing that I've said to several studio owners that I've chatted with in the past is hire a business coach, hire a business mentor. Yes. I know it sounds crazy to pay someone to kind of be that facilitator for you, but the people that are, and especially women that are in that coaching industry, they've been there and done that. They've made every mistake. They have figured out the best way to do pricing, the best way to pay your teachers, the best way to set up your budget. So hire someone. You really can't afford not to. It may seem like it's an expensive undertaking at first, or budget item, but it will help you in the end save money. It helps you navigate the challenges. And if you're doing this by yourself, it's lonely. It can be really lonely. So to have gets exactly what you were talking about when you call them up in tears or whatever bad moment you're having. That's something I'd really recommend. Other things, some people might disagree with this, but pay yourself. As a small business owner, we often put ourselves last, and your income should be part of the budget. It should be part of the, revenue that comes in, and price yourself accordingly so you are not working for free.
Of course.
That's really not a great thing.
Now you're teaching too, right? You own and teach.
I do. I own, and I do teach a couple classes, 1 or 2 a week, depending on the week. I don't have a set schedule anymore. I sub as needed and jump in.
Oh, that's probably smart.
That was a decision I made 6 to 12 months into ownership, is just to take a step back from the teaching, which for me has been the right choice. It allows me to practice more. It allows me to be available to sub at the last minute. That's worked well. Some other simple thing is have a work cell phone. Don't give out your personal phone number. Separate business from pleasure.
That's great.
And really set your studio policies and stick to them. Set your cancellation policies, your no-show policies. When do your packages expire? If you start out from day one being firm with your policies and your boundaries, that kind of sets the stage forward. Then if you have to make an exception here and there, You can, but you're not getting kind of bulldozed over into situations.
And you have something to stick to.
Yes. And that's what it's about, boundaries. You need to have boundaries, which is a huge thing, I think, as well.
Good.
Give yourself one full day a week off where you don't check your phone, you don't check your email, your staff knows, everyone knows that this is
your day. What is your day?
Well, I give this bits of advice. My day is typically Wednesdays, at least it tries to be, and I don't come in on the weekends.
Oh, good.
And then another thing, I think I say this, it's a real challenge to raise your prices. There's a fear of like, oh my gosh, if I raise my rates, what are my clients going to do? They love you. They want to stay at your studio. They support you. Don't be afraid to charge what you are worth.
The world is upcharging.
Exactly.
And nothing that you're upcharging, but like the world is getting more expensive.
Yes. Yep.
So you have to raise your rates because
you do.
I think, in order for you to get good quality instructors, you're going to have to raise your rates.
You do. You have to pay them. And the last thing that another studio owner said to me is do what brings you joy. And if you are in a place, hire out what doesn't. You know, if you don't want to clean the toilet, maybe you do like to clean the toilet.
Yeah.
I don't mind cleaning the bathroom. It gives me a sense of completion.
Right.
But find what doesn't bring you joy and give it to somebody else when you reach that stage of being able to hire someone. And then you're not feeling so burned out.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I need to follow all this for myself now.
I love all that advice that you've given. So please follow it. It's all been great advice. Yeah. Wonderful. That's our time together. So thank you so much for joining me today on my premiere episode here. Lots of insight that you've given and lots of information. Such a pleasure to sit down with you and talk with you. And I wish you much continued success in your studio. Any last moment words that you really would like to add here? We do have some time, so if you have anything that you'd like to add.
Sure. Yeah. One other thing that kind of goes back to where my why I did this and why I said yes.
Yeah.
Decided to take the leap and buy the studio. I'm a female-owned business owner. Probably 98% of the clients that walk through the door are women. A lot of mothers, and a lot of people that, there maybe are empty nesters or they're in the thick of having children at home and they're balancing work, life, career. Yeah. And something that I'm really passionate about and why I do this is to help us take care of ourselves. I think women, myself included, we often put ourselves last. We put ourselves at the end of the list before anything else. And I think this studio, my goal here is to give women and mothers especially, and really anyone, it can be anyone, we just tend to have more women here, is a place that they can go and they can put everything aside. Like what you said at the beginning of the podcast, you walk in the door and the feeling of like, everything can wait. Yes. Everything can be, my phone can be turned off. I can be here for 60 minutes and I can take care of myself. Yeah. Which it's the cliche thing, but you have to put your oxygen mask on first. Yes. In order to care for those around you. And I think that's why I do what I do is I want to have a place for people to come in the door and to be able to just breathe. Yes. Yeah, right. And just set it all aside and know that it'll still be there when you're done, but you'll come at it in a clearer mind. Yes. A better place if you are able to take care of yourself. And I don't think a lot of women do that. They don't take the time, because especially when you're in the thick. And I know I was guilty of it with kids at home and their schedules and husband's schedule. And women tend to put themselves last. Yes. And so it is such a nice place to put yourself first and really focus in on you. So wonderful. Yeah. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Tune in next time for our discussion with a Pilates instructor from the United States on her perspective of teaching Pilates in the U.S. Oh, great. Yes. I'll listen to that one. Yes. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Beth. Yes, wonderful to have you. Wonderful studio. Please come visit this studio. It's called Balance Yoga and Pilates. It's in Glen Ellen, Illinois, and it is in the United States. And if you need Beth's contact, I will be posting it on our website as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Right, bye-bye.